Welcome to the Calibre Cast, the podcast dedicated to high-caliber conversations in architecture, engineering, and construction. Join Calibre Engineering as we delve into insightful discussions with industry experts exploring the latest trends, innovations, and challenges shaping the AEC world. In 2024, Calibre is excited to present a special leadership series that will highlight diverse opinions and perspectives in AEC. We're kicking off the series with an enlightening panel discussion on breaking barriers and leading change for women in AEC. Get ready to elevate your knowledge and be inspired by high-caliber insights shared today on the Calibre Cast. Well, thank you, ladies, again so much for taking your time and being willing to be on episode 1. My name is André, and I'm the business development coordinator with Calibre, and I'm joined by...
Hi, I'm Jordan. I am a project engineer with Calibre.
And for those who are listening and those who are watching, this is our first episode, and we're very privileged to welcome 5 powerful women in the AEC industry. So if we can go around starting here, just saying your name, where you work, and maybe how you got into the industry. We'd love to hear from you.
Liz Staten, HDR. I've been in this industry over 25 years, and I got into the industry because at age 13, someone suggested I could be an architect or an engineer one day. I had taken an assessment for the gifted and talented program and came out with really good scores. And I didn't have an idea what that meant, what career that would lead to. And that woman just suggesting engineering to me stuck in my head. And that's what I looked into when I started college, 5-6 years later. So I don't know who she was, but she got me into this field.
Awesome. My name is Yvette Roman. I'm the owner and founder of Ellipsis Construction. And specifically for the AEC and general contracting construction, how I ended up here was I went to school for civil engineering and I kind of fell into general contracting. I had an internship for a civil engineering company and it was great, but I did not see myself in that role. Fortunately for me, there was a general contracting team at my school, and to this day, they still do this competition up in Reno, Nevada. It's called AEC. Not to be confused with ASCE. We had all the big GCs come in and simulate construction projects that they've bid on in the past. We were each given the task of trying to bid on it and then do the interview. And because I did that competition, I was offered a job when I graduated. And since I had to pay bills, I said, I guess I'll do this. And fortunately for me, I ended up loving it and I really enjoy it. So.
Perfect. Laura Kreger, and I'm with the Mile High Flood District. I'm the executive director, but come at it from the engineering degree side of the house. I also remember taking an assessment when I was in high school, and I am very people oriented. So it came back, I think I should be like a daycare worker or something. And I did give that to my mother, of course. And she was like, yeah, no. But no one had encouraged me at all to go into engineering. It was really my mom that got me into that. And I was fortunate that when I got to college, I really fell in love with the construction side. And so it's happy to build projects that protect people, property, and our environment.
I'm Joyce Gillick. I'm the founder and owner of 4U Architectural Solutions. And I had similar kind of background as far as being strong in math and science. Also thinking about high school, I remember looking through career assessments or something, and you had to check an interest on all these categories. And I think the only 2 that I was not interested in was a plumber and a mortician. And so truthfully, I think that probably started to set the seed a little bit because architecture is a very well-rounded profession. You've got to kind of consider all angles of the built environment, and some of them are social skills, some of them are very scientific and factual. I anticipated I'd go into engineering, but my father suggested that some of my art talents, he thought that architecture may be a good opportunity, and he's never steered me wrong. So I pursued it and love the industry.
To listen to your parents.
Yeah. My name is Rachel Grafman. I am a capital projects engineer for the city of Englewood, and I got into this line of work kind of by accident. I took AP Environmental Science as the Flacker AP Science my senior year of high school, found environmental science, really wanted to take the value of repairing the world and kind of the climate activism that hadn't yet come about And I just wanted to make the world a better place. And my parents are both liberal arts MBAs, so they had no idea what any STEM anything was. And we looked through a Barron's book. I don't know if anyone remembers it was the size of like a phone book, and it had all the college majors in it. And so we were flipping through, and there was a page for environmental science and a page for environmental engineering. And we were like, it seems pretty similar, but with the engineering degree, you can be done in 4 years and just have a bachelor's and off you go. And I was like, okay. Try that. I was very liberal artsy, so I started college behind in math. How I got direct admission to the engineering school, I have no idea, but I did, and I graduated in 4 years, come hell or high water. It was very challenging, but now I'm here.
That's awesome. I'm hearing a lot of aptitude tests a little bit, and a lot of like thinking about your personality. So could any of you actually speak into that, like what it's been like finding your way into the industry and also fostering your personality? Like, what is that like, letting that shine? What's that like, finding your career? So for anyone who's younger, who might be an introvert, anyone who's younger, who might be an extrovert, wherever you get your energy, what's that like trying to siphon that into your career itself?
Well, I had a long-winded experience learning that I am not the world's most detail-oriented person, which is challenging in this line of work. I definitely have gravitated towards kind of more of the flexible, negotiable, changeable parts of our industry. Like CAD work was not where my strengths lie. Being sure that a line was on the right layer and then snapped to the right other line. And that was not where my skills were. My skills are more about my relationship with people and tapping into that and trying to foster a sense of community and camaraderie on a team to work together to get a project either designed or constructed.
Yeah, and to add to that, I mean, commercial real estate or AEC industry, it's very people and relationships oriented, whether it's the client, the design team, trade partners. And I think the way that I've tried to keep my authenticity, I think it's been pretty easy in my perspective, because all of the people that I just mentioned have their own unique personalities all the time. Like, you can't make two engineers that think the same way. I mean, other than the technical skills, everybody has their own personality. The clients, I mean, that's like a whole other like Rolodex of personalities. And I think that has provided the flexibility for me, I think, to just, there are times when you have to have those serious conversations, kind of being bubbly and happy one minute, and then sometimes you have to be serious and just get to the facts and get to the point, especially when they're those complicated or difficult conversations. We talked about setting boundaries and knowing your worth, and that way you can navigate those difficult conversations. But when you're just also just trying to build a relationship, I've always felt comfortable just being myself, being silly, however that looks like sometimes, or being witty sometimes. It's good to have that banter with everybody. I don't know, I have fun with it. I've never felt like I needed to shy away or be different. I mean, sometimes you meet like those tough, rough personalities out in the field, but even then, sometimes they're just having a bad day and they're just as goofy themselves. Then they don't know you. Sometimes people just don't know you and they're also just being shy. That's why they stay very stoic or very tough or whatever the case may be.
I think that you're right. Sometimes you kind of have a perception if somebody's stoic or whatever, that they are unapproachable. And so many times they're shy, or sometimes you wonder, should I ask the question? And oftentimes there's a handful of other people that have the same question. And so kind of voicing it, but being authentic and genuine. I'm very happy that I've never been kind of put in a position where you've got to put on different airs or try to be something else. I mean, there's some industries and sectors that, you've got to make it look like it's just all peachy. And I think being authentic, I've always tried to treat clients the way that I want to be treated, in addition to whoever you're working with, your staff and team. But from a perspective of doing a design or working on a project, it's really important to hear and try to listen to what their concerns are, what their key issues are, and try to be authentic to that and respond to it as well. And I think that's helped a lot through the years.
I would say the one advice I'd give for younger people, it's the long game, especially if you are on the more social side. Starting off in like a design firm, or you're kind of doing the grunt work. So there's not a lot of social engagement yet, but you got to put your time in And eventually that's pieces will come. And I would say that there's lots of other opportunities to get that social networking in, whether it's through associations or some type of organize something within your company. But don't be frustrated and leave the industry too early. It just takes some years to get that foundation, and then you'll bring those other pieces in that may satisfy some of those other social interactive engagements you're looking for.
I think one thing I'd say to younger engineers is try everything and do your best at everything. I started in roadway design and it was fine. I didn't love it, but I was doing a great job and trying my best and learning everything. So I got the opportunity to switch into the bridge group. And so I did that for 2 years. And then I'm like, never going to be a great bridge engineer, but the hydraulics team was going to hire someone. And I was like, I could do that. And so because I had that good, solid background, people trusted me to do the work. Even if I didn't love it, I still did my best. And so I ended up with a career I love now because I started with a really strong work ethic.
What advice would you give to women aspiring to advance into leadership roles?
I could start with that one. So a way to advance into a leadership role is actually through a professional organization that you can get into a leadership role starting as a secretary, treasurer, vice president, all the way in like ASCE. There's a Colorado Association for Stormwater Professionals. And those have a lot of client interactions. As a consulting engineer, having that opportunity to call a client like the Mile High Flood District and say, hey, I know you have this great project and I'd love to have you come talk about it. It's an easy way to get your clients and have a client interaction and get to know them on a more personal level when you're not just calling them and asking them for work. And it was a great opportunity to be seen as a leader in the industry when I was still a young engineer. So I think that's an advice you can get into leadership very quickly through professional organizations.
Yeah, and I mentioned it before, go for it. Don't be afraid. I mean, many times we just hold ourselves back with self-doubt and insecurity. And even though we're more than qualified, or even if you don't feel you're totally qualified, we mentioned the different personalities between men and women, is just go for it. Because more than likely when a guy doesn't feel qualified, he'll still go for it anyway. So why not do the same? I mean, you're going to make mistakes and learn. So just go for it.
What is it also like thinking about having your career and moving on in your career, but then you also have your personal life? And does it feel like there's duality there? Could any of you just shine light on maybe what does work-life balance look like? And then also what does it look like to progress as your own human and progress as a professional?
I love the term juggling act more than a balancing act, because that's what it feels like. I'm the mother of 3. And always worked a full time, and a husband who also works full time. And what I found, and the phrase we use a lot in our office, is you need to know what balls are glass and which ones are rubber. And that changes week to week, because sometimes my glass balls could be my kids. If they have an event that I need to be at, then you work around that glass ball. But sometimes my glass ball is my board, right? I've got a board meeting tomorrow, so that's priority right now. And then my philosophy is then you get as many of the rubber balls up in the air as you can. But it really is an understanding what your priorities are and making space for those priorities. And that priority is going to shift, and that's okay.
That's the best work-life balance explanation I've ever heard. When I see the question of how do you balance and what advice do you have for that, it's like, boy, I wish I knew. Because I always feel like I put my family and children on the back burner. One of the things that we used to do is I always felt like on a normal day, I spent far too much time in the office doing my work, focusing that way, but trying to look for those opportunities where you really just shut off. And it wasn't so much quantity of time, but trying to have the quality of time so that you totally disconnect and are there and present with your family, with your children when you can be, so that you can create those memories and those bonds, because I feel like the time demands of this industry is very challenging. One of the things I focus on is my health. I mean, without a good health, you really can't do anything. You can't work or have a personal life. And kind of chiming in with priorities is like, even the fun has to be scheduled. Otherwise, if you just kind of wing it sometimes, you also waste time trying to figure out what are you going to do for fun that day at that exact hour. So I think for having that juggling work-life balance, you do have to kind of pre-plan stuff. You need it. I've gone through phases where sometimes it was just like all work, 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 hardly any personal. And I was like, oh my God, you feel like a robot afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And without that personal stuff, that way you can like have fun, let that inner child like have fun too. So.
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea of the glass and rubber balls. I am getting married in August, and we have been discussing having children. And it is actually a discussion that I brought up with my manager recently.
It's good to do.
Just to be like, hey, like, what are you envisioning that this would look like? I am terrified of being left behind in the office. I am like extremely competitive naturally. And so I am like, I refuse to be left behind. I am like, what are you envisioning? And I was basically like, yeah, maybe I do 6 weeks and I'm back. And he was like, if you need a year, it will be okay. I just wanted to ask if you guys have dealt with this. Did you feel pressure to come back to the office immediately?
I felt a lot of pressure. It's very scary. And even in the environment early at that same time, there weren't a lot of architecture opportunities. So I don't want to lose this opportunity. So I think you're leaps and bounds ahead of me by having those conversations. And I think that there's things in the industry that help support having time with the baby and maternity leave and paternity leave and things like that are so valuable, because I hate to see the whole world deciding just not to have children just because it's really tough to balance.
Yeah, that's like the exact conversation that I've been having is like, I want them so badly, but it's like, yeah, just really scary to feel like you're going to be left behind.
Those conversations are key. You're way ahead of me.
And I think we were taught you can have it all. And for a while, I was like, well, can you? How do you define have it all? Your have it all may look like part-time work for a bit. But will that hold you off in 10 years from now? Probably not. But we kind of get in our head that we have to do all of it. And that can make you a little crazy. So I would go back to what we talked a little bit earlier about what do you value? What's most important to you? And when you express that and get a plan together, I think you're going to be okay. But trying to think that you have to spread yourself so thin for everything, you're going to feel like you're doing none of it. And that is really hard to deal with from experience.
I think part of it is we don't do a good job supporting parents in this industry, being flexible with work schedules so you can go to soccer games or middle of the day parent teacher conferences or all those things. That as we don't support really that flexibility. I think we do a better job now, but I think those opportunities to do a better job are still needed. I started work with a group of women 25 years ago, and half of those women are not still in this industry because they had kids and didn't come back in or couldn't, after taking 4 and 5 years off, really struggled to get back into the industry. And so we lost all that knowledge, all those women in the industry that really don't feel like they can stay in it.
I think we've made leaps and bounds, though, and especially COVID really pushed us to remote work. That can fit really well for kids' schedules. And for me, I wanted to make sure that your after school events you need to be there for. But your kids go to bed at 8:30, so I could work easily another hour or two after they went to bed, and that kind of fit our world. And I think that's so much more acceptable now. And so I do think that as anybody in leadership roles within organizations, making sure you're creating the space for your team to have that, I think is so important, because the value that you will bring to the team is so much more than saying that because you missed a year and a half, you have to start it down low again. It's like, no, your life experiences makes you a contributor, and value that and tell them why it makes you a contributor.
Yeah, kind of jumping off of that, I would like to have kids in the future, and to have that flexibility as a business owner to come and leave, I would want to extend that to my employees. So I have that in my employee handbook for men and women, because it has to be fair. Sometimes guys can go and take care of the baby while the mom goes back to work. And having a very strong mom myself, I think that's important to help parents with families. And like we mentioned, it helps them to become better leaders, because when you have kids, you have to be more flexible, more understanding, empathetic.
Yeah, I think the younger generation owning businesses is so cool. I have 2 friends who own businesses and they both just gave paid holidays for the first time to their employees.
Oh.
And I was just like, I think there are so many things that feel like maybe are more valued now. I'm also very hopeful that the city of Denver will have free daycare soon. I did vote on that recently. So I was like, maybe by the time if I waited out. This all leads into the next question, which is what initiatives or changes do you believe are necessary to further support the leadership progression of women in the AEC industry?
Oh, Laura just talked about it. I think that the flexibility in work scheduling is not there, not in the public sector. There's a lot of old guard folks who have been with their cities, counties, governments for the 20s, the 30s, the 40 years. And because they've always done it this way, your butt needs to be in a chair from 8 to 4, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, no remote days at some places. And I think that is a change we need to see.
I like what you're saying, that what we need to get is more diversity in leadership, right? Because those are the ones who are making these decisions and making these policies. And so I don't think we should be choosing our leaders based off of old thinking, right? Who can bring value to the team to make us better as an organization? And that could be a 25-year-old, right? That could be whoever. And so we have to redefine what we want as leaders of our organizations.
We mentioned it before, mentorship is key, but the way to help foster that leadership coming from experience as well is like having seen those opportunities, being provided that training, that education. I have had the best mentors as a business owner, maybe because I've done the initiative of actually going out to find them myself. I wish I had them in the first few years or in the middle of it, because that would have saved a lot of pain. I think mentorship is key, whether having a program, whether it's your direct manager or someone outside in the vicinity, like we mentioned, outside of your department. But I think mentors are key.
I think the challenge is that it has to be somewhat organic. And so I think if we bring more awareness, is whoever you are, try to find that engagement with someone and do it in an informal way.
Yeah, sometimes that accountability isn't there. So someone that you can rely on.
I love being a mentor. It's one of those things. I had really good mentors in my firm. And so I feel like I had great examples of that. And so it's something, I still have these two that I talk to all the time. One of them's retired now, but she's still my person. I call when I've got something good at work and something bad at work. She helps talk me through it. But I want to be that mentor for the next generation. And I've got a young woman I mentor, and I learned so much from her with 2 years of experience. She's teaching me how she wants to be a leader. We've talked about her training interns and how she's stepping into that leadership role as a young entry-level person. And I think I've learned a lot on what's important to the next generation of engineers coming up behind us.
Hearing from people from all sectors, different age groups, different perspectives, because we all have our own preconceived notions of what it means to be or how it should be, or traditionally it's always been this way. And COVID changed a bunch of rules, which created a lot of helpful things with flexibility. But being able to understand and hear from people of all ages and backgrounds is so valuable.
I'm really appreciative because hearing with leadership and how everyone here has been talking about it, I'm hearing a lot of humility. Because I think leadership can seem to be something like, how can I use this power to rule over someone? But everyone here is talking about thinking about the next generation. So I feel like a good last question is, how do you kind of foresee this next generation of AEC? What are some things that you're hoping for? What are things that you're paving the way in just overall, when you envision the future? And especially for young women who are entering in, like what are these concepts that you're thinking about?
I think about adaptability, that we are working in such a changing world, that the more we can understand what's happening and absorb that and change our organization. So it's just being adaptable and not getting set in our ways. I think traditionally this industry has been pretty much, this is the way we do it. And right now we're doing it the same way, and we're losing people because they don't want to work a 60-hour work week. They want to have children, and they're like, well, I can do this other career. And we can't lose the talent because there are so many challenges for this industry as we look at our infrastructure and budget constraints and climate change, that we need the smartest minds. So I think we need to adapt to what people want. And what we have going for us is meaningful work. And that's a big thing for people. They want training. So let's figure out the training. Let's figure out the mentoring, and let's work reasonable hours with expectations so people can have a little bit more of that balancing act versus the juggling act. So I think those are the trends that we need to move towards.
And what you say is absolutely correct. And one of the things that comes to my mind is the AI. And how is that beneficial in an industry that has shortages in all engineers, architects, construction, every trade, I think, has a shortage. I think there's some things that it can really help, and trying to figure out how that might be a good, helpful factor in our industry and support all of us.
This next generation is going to reinvent the wheel in some ways. They're tech savvy in a way that each generation prior was not or is not. And they're going to change the way that we tackle problems just because they have different problem solving skills. And there's certain things about architecture and physics that aren't going to change. We're not going to put toilets on ceilings anytime soon. The minimum slope of a pipe is not going to change. But I think that we can think about better drafting, better modeling, and the next generation can get involved in designing those softwares as well as the execution of our projects in a way that those of us who are already in the industry maybe aren't able to comprehend.
And to add on what you're saying, Rachel, I love the fact that the technical parts, I think, is where AI is going to fit us, right? It's the leadership and how to bring those problem solving together, which is what we're really ultimately trying to do something unique. That's where AI doesn't fit in. And I think women are so fit for leadership roles because they come in with a collaborative spirit and less ego. And you will find more effective teams typically have a higher female ratio. So I think there's so much value.
You women set a very high bar for the rest of the conversations we'll be having in the community. But seriously, thank you for being willing for not only the panel, but also the podcast back to back. We appreciate your insight. And for those listening, thank you for joining. Thank you for tuning into the Calibre Cast. We hope that you enjoyed today's high caliber conversation with our leading industry experts. Stay tuned for the next episode in our leadership series, where we'll dive into an enlightening discussion on LGBTQ+ representation in architecture, engineering, and construction. We look forward to having you join us for another insightful episode. Remember to subscribe so that you never miss an episode of the Calibre Cast.